Rainbow Dash occupied 4 worn hoof prints outside of the apothecarium. She had been standing in the same spot for over 15 minutes. Her mind played every prediction she could come up with of how he would react, and none of them contained a yes. She thought up every way she could approach him. Start with idle conversation and slip in a question, or just ask outright. She fidgeted with indecision. Her wings twitched under the strain of frustration. Hey Dominic, do you think you could do something for me? No. I was thinking, since you're such a great guy and all. Dash quietly rehearsed herself. She wasn't used to asking other ponies for favors this way. Usually she'd find one of her friends and politely rope them into whatever she needed them to do, like when she got Fluttershy to come with her to Cloudsdale for the Young Flyers competition. That wouldn't work in this case. To start off, Dominic was not, in any sense of a word, a social butterfly. His approachability on any given day was limited. She looked over the stonework building that he lived and worked in. Rusted ironwork jutted from the edge of the roof. The cobblestones were all shades of gray, and gray. It was pitted with signs of weathering and decay. Twilight has described it as macabre. Naturally, Rainbow Dash had asked what the hey that meant. She said it meant creepy. The Cyan Pegasus replied, saying that she could have said that in the first place. Twilight merely rolled her eyes. On the wall next to the door was a half-circle, curved side facing up. On the left side was a swatch of dark red. On the right side was a swatch of bright green. In between was several other colors that graduated to and from the respective colors. On the bottom center of this half-circle was a pivoted dial attached to a black and white arrow that would point to the different pigments. This simply seemingly pointless device was what Dominic used to display his approachability for the day. After weeks of him exploding at ponies due to his impatience, Twilight had said that there is a solution to that issue. So every time his mood changed, he'd set the dial accordingly. Green meant he was probably skipping in joy and breaking out into songs about flowers and birdies. That'll happen as soon as pigs fly. Red meant he was ready to kill something with his stare. Not surprisingly, the dial was inversely indicative to how absorbed he was in his work. Today, the arrow pointed right in the middle, leaning slightly to the left. That meant that it was more or less a regular day for the chemist. That doesn't help Rainbow Dash at all. She was, after all, about to come to him with the most personal request she had ever asked. She would be in a similar nerve-wracked state, regardless of the pony she had to ask. Her eyes pinched together. She walked up to the small stone porch leading to the building's heavy wooden door. Carefully, she put a hoof on the frame and, with some effort, pushed it open. The door ringer chimed. The first thing that hit her was a smell. Nowhere in Equestria can any pony find the same collection of stenches. It was like a 50-year-old rotten sock saturated in cleaning chemicals, left out in the sun to dry and baked in a dirty oven. It drilled into Dash's nostrils relentlessly, nearly making her lose control of her stomach. She squeezed her eyes shut and pressed onward into the dimly lit residence. The store part was true to its fashion, an area of walls lined with shelves housing potions and mixtures. In the back of this area was a quaint wooden counter, obviously newer than the house itself. Behind the counter was Dominic's workplace, a room stuffed with tables that were cluttered with funky-shaped glassware. A plethora of liquids bubbled and siphoned into other containers from a web work of tubes and spigots. The smell became stronger as Rainbow Dash got closer to the workplace. Peering around the corner, she could see her intended objective. Dominic had a quill in his mouth, scribing some notes on a sheet of parchment. His brow was taut with concentration, and his hooves were rested on the edge of the table. He stopped only to dip his quill in a rather gummy and well-used clay inkpot before he began to scribble more notes down. Dash stepped into his workplace and cleared her throat softly. And Dominic's fur bristled as he impersonally spat out the quill onto the table and reared his head towards the intrusion. "What?" She recoiled, her well-rehearsed plans suddenly forgotten. The chemist at Pony's side. "I'm terribly sorry, Modash. I had no idea it was you. I didn't even hear you come in. Must have been too engrossed in writing this." He picked the quill back up in his maw. "Did you need something, my dear?" Dash fidgeted. Up close and true, her to her previous words, he smelled terrible, so bad that it was distinctly from the background smell. Yeah, just a small thing. He brushed his long, unwashed hair out of his eyes and continued to write. Well, anything that can be of assistance? She started to sweat, her words snagged in her throat. I just need a potion for something. You're going to have to be more specific than that. If you need a potion, then I could most likely provide it. Rainbow Dash gritted her teeth and tightened her eyes together. Her voice cracked. I need a potion that can give me hands. Dominic stopped writing. He stopped thinking. He took several moments to register and re-register her request. When it was thoroughly processed and when he double-checked to make sure he didn't mishear, his neck muscles went limp and his head fell to the table with a soft thump. Oh, Rainbow Dash, you're killing me. Before she could reply, his hooves were thrown up in the air in exasperation. It's just so stupidly consistent. Almost every one of you girls come to me with completely random requests, and now you want hands? Where the flying frosted hands come from? He clopped to the ground as a coughing fit exploded from his trachea, racking his entire body. To Dash, it sounded like he was gonna croak right there and then. But Dominic's coughs always sound like that. Something wrong with his lungs or something. She couldn't remember exactly why at the moment. He finally finished, albeit he was breathing quite heavily. Don't let me get worked up like that. His eyes wired in exertion. But really, I'm afraid of what you girls think about in your spare time. Where did your deep, dark fetish come from? His deep blue gaze unnerved her even further, if such a thing was possible. Well, this guy came to Ponyville. He's not a pony. He calls himself a human or something. And you just happened to mention this off-vividly. Tell me, why wasn't this new development the first thing to reach my ears? I was gonna get to it. He waved his hoof. Sure. She continued more hesitant than ever as she recalled the embarrassing fiasco she was unwittingly created. What came over her, she had no idea. When she saw those hands, something clicked in her brain. Something that she didn't believe could exist within her psyche. She'd never been this wanting of something in all her life. She'd always wanted to fly fast. She always wanted to be a Wonderbolt. But this was something deeper. Something carnal. Something within her body that craved it with a fiery passion. She wanted to feel it for herself. The flexible stimulation, the sensation of dexterity. It almost hurts. Well, he has hands, and I thought they were kind of cool, so I want to try him and stuff. Her voice petered out at that point. Why can't you go to Twilight with this? I'm sure she has a spell that could suffice. She doesn't have one. Dash lied. She couldn't possibly face the unicorn after what happened earlier. Rainbow, I'm not some kind of personal provider of wanton satisfaction. Where does the particularity come into play? You certainly don't need hands to fly. He was like that. The need for practical reasons was a trait he shared with Twilight. I just want to try him out, that's all, she offered meekly. Dominic thought for a moment. No. What? Why? Every time I give you girls a potion merely to try it, always ends up in an embarrassing disaster. I have enough foresight to know that this time will be no different. She got closer and implored with all her might. Oh, come on, please. A couple hours is all I need. What could possibly go wrong? The aged stallion gave her a hard glare. My disposition still stands. I will not risk yours or any pony's well-being to sate your inane desires. Ramdash appeared smitten as his stomach went back to his table and resumed his writing. Now, if you will excuse me, I must return to my work. Failing to think of anything else to say that would convince the old-timer otherwise, she rushed out of the front door, taking off to the skies immediately thereafter. She was glad to be out of that smelly place, but her urges were still eating her inside out. She had to think of something else. Meanwhile, Dominic dried his ink and flipped the parchment over, preparing to mark the other side. Mares, he muttered. It goes without saying that you learn something new every day. Their situation was no exception. That day, Twilight learned much about humans and their futuristic and fascinating world. Applejack gained a new perspective on judging character. Rarely learned that humans could run fast. But for the time, the denizens of Ponyville were treated to quite a sight. A rough, dirty bipedal creature hollering top of his lungs, running for the sake of his safety and well-being, followed by a frothing, mad alabaster unicorn sporting tailor's equipment. Some ponies were scared, some were confused. Some ponies realized their destinies to become great heroes and someday bring peace and prosperity to Equestria from the hooves of evil, fashion-loving demon mistresses before winding up in a padded room tied up in a straitjacket, cackling mad about their non-existent conquests. But that's beside the point. Fortunately for Ellis, Rarity never had that much endurance to begin with, so she soon tired out and calmed down long enough for Applejack and Twilight to convince her that she and the human could coexist. The fashionista agreed to allow him to wear his garb for now, which was as far as any pony could get with her. This was Rarity, after all. She huffed and begrudgingly followed the gang back to the library, all while glaring venom at Ellis. The orange earth pony approached the human. "Hey, Ellis." Ellis looked at her, his sweat made his bangs cling to his forehead. "Yeah, Jay?" "I talked to the mayor, and I made a promise to take your weapon from you." Ellis hesitated. He had that machete for a long time, put the grip tape on it himself, but since he more or less escaped from the zombie apocalypse, he honestly didn't need it anymore. Still, "We won't break it or nothing. We just need to keep it so no pony get scared." Applejack reassured. "Well, I guess that makes sense. Just take care. It's kind of important to me." He undid the sheath strap and encircled his chest and held out the blade within his scabbard. A purple aura surrounded his possession, and it was levitated from his hand. "Don't worry, Applejack." Twilight brought the object to her, with her back into the library. "I have the perfect place for this. If you don't mind, that is." Applejack waved her hoof. "No problem, Twi. There ain't no better pony to keep it safe than yourself." All four entered the library once again. Twilight went upstairs, Ellis's machete still floating close to her. She then rested it on a shelf above her bed. With an intense glow from her horn, the cubbyhole faded, replaced with an enchanted invisible wall. It was virtually indiscriminate from the rest of the wall. Even the grain matched it perfectly. No pony save herself and a few other talented unicorns would be able to see through the illusion. A perfect plan, hiding something in plain sight. There was no question about it, the sanctuary of Ellis's machete. As she turned to head back downstairs, Spike's bed caught her eye, which reminded her of her intention to send a letter to Princess Celestia. She completely forgot. Mentally face-moving, she trotted over to her assistant's crib. A sudden thought struck her. How could he have slept through the incident earlier? She knew that the little dragon was a heavy sleeper, but not at this time of the day. "Spike!" Twilight admonished. "It's way past noon. Time to get up." In response, using her magic, she yanked the blankets off of what she assumed was the snoring body of Spike. Her fears were confirmed when she found out a collection of pillows and stuffed dolls that were absurdly placed to look like him. Anger burned in the unicorn's cheeks. Spike, she realized, thought he could fool her with such a childish trick. It worked, but for the most part, he must have been gone for a long while, considering that Ellis's episode was at least a few hours ago. The one day Twilight hadn't bothered to wake him up, he had to go and pull this stunt. But where was he now? She was soon answered by the sound of her bedroom window creaking open. In stepped the escapist, a bulging satchel hung round his shoulder. He took no notice of the furious pony and instead relished his loot, holding up to his claws. He quietly chuckled to himself. "Safe at last. You're all mine. Oof!" He ran face first into the librarian. The bag fell to from his grip, and its contents spilled from the inside. They were pearls, an unusual treat for dragons, but not out of the question. They weren't deep earth gems, but made by the giant clams off coast. Minerals all the same. Spike sputtered as he met eyes with Twilight. "Oh, hey, Twi, I brought you some, souvenirs." She only glared. "Spike, how could you? You tricked me and snuck away with some pearls." He stood up frantically, shaking his head in her accusation. "It's not what you think it looks like, I swear." Where did you even get them? The merchant outside of town. He just about to leave, so I got some of the pearls. You stole them? No, no, I paid for them, I swear. Honest. She pointed to the ivory orbs resting on the floor. You don't have enough bits to pay for all those. I, sort of threw in a couple of my dragon scales, too. The guy seemed to like them. Coast ponies were like that. They treasured uncommon things often, and it wasn't every day that you get a chance to collect a few genuine dragon scales. Still, she believed exploiting his own body for monetary gain was wrong. Her glare only intensified. Why couldn't you have asked? I could have let you buy a few. Spike tapped his index claws together. Well, I was afraid that he'd leave soon. You weren't here, and I didn't want you to know that I was gone without your permission. Twilight face huffed. Spike! It's been hectic around here. What if I needed an urgent letter to Celestia? I'm sorry, okay? I just wanted some pearls. Is it really that hard to understand? The guy only comes to Ponyville once every few years. He crossed his stubborn arms and pouted. Twilight sighed. Do you even know what's been going on around here? He glanced back at the window. Does it have something to do with the town being completely empty? Ellis called from downstairs. Hey, Twi! Who are you talking to? Who's that? Spike inquired. That's Ellis. He's the reason why Ponyville's empty. We're sorting that out right now. Spike began to pick up the pearls and put them back in a bag. Why would he be the reason? Go meet him and see for yourself. All right. He began to hop down the stairs when the bag he was holding was magically pulled from his claws. Hey, what gives? Oh no, Spike. You weren't getting these until you made up to me for sneaking out like that. But the baby dragon weakly protested. He really couldn't say anything that would convince the unicorn, so he stomped off in a huff. When Spike was gone, Twilight went back to the enchanted cubbyhole and hovered the bag through the non-existent wall. It rippled and shimmered like the surface of an agitated pond, but soon it returned to its former disguise. Why hadn't I thought of this earlier? She silently wondered. Ellis gawked at Spike. Spike in turn gawked back at Ellis. The two merely stared at each other, mouths agape. Their arms hung limply at their sides. Their eyes were as wide as saucers. The silence suffocated the air around them. Rarity and Applejack had no idea whatsoever of what was going on. It was as they were locked in a wordless conflict to see who would react first. The touching electrified the atmosphere. Finally, the human raised his arm and pointed directly at Spike. That, he said befuddlingly, is a miniature Barney. At the same moment, in a parallel universe, someone somewhere suddenly died of a massive stroke. I'm a dragon, and my name's Spike, he shouted with a leftover indignity that from having his treats taken away. Ellis scratched his chin. You can't be a dragon. You're way too small. Applejack cleared her throat. He's a baby dragon. I'm not a baby. The human stooped down to observe the spiteful creature. If you're a dragon, where's your wings? Don't dragons have wings? He's an uncommon breed of wingless dragon, Twilight explained matter-of-factly as she descended the steps. But he's still classified as a dragon. Spike's cheeks went hot and he folded his arms. Thanks a lot, Twi. He's always felt ashamed of his lack of wings. But he can still breathe fire, right? Ellis questioned. Because really, breathing fire is the important thing. Spike could send notes to the princess via magic fire, but his actual fire-breathing skills were not so good. It wasn't very hot nor very long. It was about 2 to 3 feet, and Twilight forbade him to practice in the library. When he did practice, he'd usually tire out after 4 or so times. I'm working on it. Applejack queried the human. Ellis, do you have a dragon where you're from? Nope, he replied plainly. We also don't have unicorns or Pegasi or magic. Twilight took interest. Then how did you know of them? Where I'm from, those are all made-up things from Ole Miss. Magic ain't possible there either, as far as I know. Myth! Rarity spoke. How inconsiderate of them. You don't seem surprised to meet a dragon. Lavender Unicorn amused. He raised an eyebrow. Twi, I've seen a lot of crazy shit. Considering what happened today, I don't think anything can surprise me anymore. Soft knock sounded from the door, causing all the heads in the room to turn it in its direction. The door opened and Fluttershy stuck her head inside. Mayor sent me to come get you guys. The town meeting is going to start in 30 minutes. Twilight walked over to her writing desk. You guys go ahead. I have to write it to Celestia first. Levitating parchment, quill, and ink, she began composing her letter. Rarity, Applejack, Ellis, and Fluttershy exited the library and headed in the direction of the town hall. Spike stood beside the writing desk, twiddling his claws. Twilight, do you want me to write it? No, Spike, she replied without even glancing up from her scribing. I'll do the writing this time. It's only a short note. When she was finished, she proofread the letter to make sure it was passable. Dear Princess Celestia, I am writing to inform you of a recent event here in Ponyville. A creature by the name of Ellis was found by Applejack in her grove. He is not a pony, but something that I have never seen or heard about before. He calls himself a human. Bipedal, intelligent, capable of complex emotion and speech. He is friendly, thankfully, and is about to be introduced to the town. I shall keep you informed of any future events. Your faithful student, Twilight Sparkle. Okay, Spike. Send it on its way. She rolled the paper up and sealed with the scarlet ribbon. Spike grabbed it out of there. You got it! Sucking in a deep breath, he incinerated with his signature emerald fire into a twinkling puff of smoke. The two watched it snake out the window and fly towards the palace. Come on, let's catch up to the others. Applejack hustled to get beside Fluttershy. The canary Pixis acknowledged her with a nod. Did you have any luck with Pinks? Well, no, she's out of the kitchen, but then she locked herself upstairs. I tried everything. I even tried getting her with the apple maple hard candies, but she still won't come out. Farm Pony flinched. That bad? She nodded yes. I've never seen her this irrational before. I don't know what's got in her. AJ, Ellis intervened, I'd just like to say that I'm sorry for that again. Ellis, it ain't your fault. Pinky's just being more stubborn than cold molasses. Flashlight glanced back at the group. Where's Rainbow Dash? We haven't seen her since, well, you know. Applejack made a vague gesture, not willing to mention the event that was something AJ would rather forget. Arriving at the towering town hall, the five were ushered into the building by a pair of blue uniformed police ponies. They seemed on edge with a human in their presence. Despite Applejack's assurance, when they were all inside, Mayor stood stoically waiting. Her legs faltered ever slightly at the sight of the imposing bipedal, but she kept her diplomatic composure for the best of her ability. Twilight stood between them and spoke, hoping to ease the strain. Ellis, this is Mayor. Mayor, this is Ellis McKinney. Ellis stooped to the crouch and held out his hand, smiling sincerely. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mayor. Miss Mayor. The mid-aged mayor took the hand with a half-hearted shake. This was not at all what she had been expecting. She imagined him being terrifying and vulgar to cause such a disturbance. But his appearance was only strange. In addition, his mannerisms and behavior was polite, yet informal and friendly. Still, she clung to some of the skepticism as a precaution. The population of Ponyville would not be as accepting as Twilight and her friends. She needed to maneuver this carefully. Likewise, Ellis, and welcome to Ponyville. I apologize on behalf of everybody in this town for this whole misunderstanding. Ellis broke the handshake. Always no trouble at all, ma'am. The secretary came up to the mayor. 5 minutes, miss. Thank you. She turned to the ponies standing next to the human. I'd like you all to be by my side when I give the announcement. With any luck, having you four will put the crowd at ease. She sighed. I'm not going to lie. This is going to be more difficult than you can imagine. I have no idea how hundreds of ponies will react to this. We could hog-tie Lily, Daisy, and Roseluck. They'll solve about half the problem. Jack mused silently. Don't worry, Miss Mayor. You can count on our help. Twilight encouraged. Mayor smiled. I'm sure your help won't be unnoticed, Twilight. She paused, then added, It would probably be best if you four went out first. I'll come to speak to our guest after they've been calmed down. Twilight, Fluttershy, and Applejack and Rarity Twilight, Fluttershy, Upjack, and Rarity took their leave to meet the crowd. Only Ellis and Mayor were left in the room. After a moment of silence, the mayor directed a firm scowl towards the human, causing him to flinch. "Listen here, Ellis, and listen well." Her voice, which had previously been polite and neutral, now dripped with unreserved venom and frustration from having to pull together an entire town from the brink of anarchy. "You may have gained the trust of Twilight and her friends, but you haven't gained mine. You're trouble, whether you intend to be or not. If you cause any more harm, I guarantee you will hear from me. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, ma'am." Ellis gulped. She reminded him of his old high school math teacher. He was scared shitless of his old math teacher. "Good." She and the human both headed for the door. Meanwhile, outside, a vast, multicolored crowd of equines endured the idleness, constant burying noise of 100 conversations at once truncated every pony's ability to hear. In the front of the crowd were news reporters, earth ponies, and unicorns sporting tan jackets, fedoras, pencils, notepads, cameras, and facial hair. They talked amongst themselves above the din of the crowd, vocalizing their impatience, but also anxious to extract some juicy knowledge of what some ponies witnessed as an upright, hairless monkey run through the streets. This was definitely front-page news. Pegasus rested upon clouds, stagnantly hovering above the grounded ponies and unicorns below. They too chatted and waited for the arrival of the town's mayor. In the back of the crowd stood a sweating green unicorn. Her heart thumped with wild anticipation. Her name was... well, take a friggin' guess. The door opened and out came 4 well-known ponies. 4 of the 6 who had saved Equestria twice from the belligerent evils of Nightmare Moon and Discord. Some ponies stopped their conversations to listen to what they may say, while most others continued to buzz on with theirs. The 4 only conversed among themselves, inaudible for the rest of the crowd. When finally Mayor stepped out with Ellis behind her. As if one flipped a switch, the background noise ceased immediately when a human came into sight. All that was heard was the afterbreath of several gasps. Cameras began blinking out harsh white flashes. The mayor climbed atop the speaking pedestal and panned over the captivated audience before finally speaking. "Citizens of Ponyville," the speakers broadcast the whole crowd, "we are gathered here in this honor to put at rest the growing fears and unbecoming rumors circulating throughout. Firstly, there is no creature, monster, or otherwise that wishes to do us harm." There was a collective exhale of relief. The news ponies furiously scribbled into their notepads as Mayor continued. "Secondly, the one who many of you may have assumed to be hostile was declared his cooperation with our authorities. He is a visitor from a faraway land. He may look strange, but we mustn't judge him by his appearance. Twilight, protege of Princess Celestia herself." She gestured to some profusely blushing unicorn. "And Abject, the most dependable pony of Ponyville, have both personally assured me of his good behavior, and I trust that each and every one of you will do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ellis McKinney." Ellis was suddenly shoved into the spotlight in front of the amassed pastel ponies. The crowd stared to exchange hushed whispers and remarks as the human began to sweat. He, like any average person, couldn't smooth their way in front of a huge, scrutinizing audience. Ellis cleared his throat and phlegm and spoke quietly in the microphone. Hi, name's Ellis. I'm, new here and stuff." He itched the back of his neck with his trembling fingers, frantically searching for more words he could use. "It's a nice place y'all got here." Mayor saw he was starting to fumble and leaned into the mic right next to him. "Any questions?" Dozens of hooves were noisily raised into the air, each one eager to gather information from the new being. The mayor scratched her chin. Yes, you there." She randomly picked a pony. "What's your favorite color?" Ellis grabbed the mic. "Red, I guess." Mayor face hoofed. "Next question." Oh! Cross-eyed gray Pegasus flailed her forelegs on a stratocumulus glove. "Do you like muffins?" Miss Mary massaged her temples as Ellis answered the question too. "Oatmeal and brown sugar, my personal favorite." Derby squealed in delight. "How did you get here?" the more sensible pony asked. "Man, I've been trying to figure that out all morning. Wish I knew. Jesus." The crowd went silent as they contemplated in confusion. Who's Jesus? Isn't that the guy who hangs bowling alley? Somebody say my name. He's kind of a jerk. Hey, don't bug with the Jesus. That's enough, the mayor called out. She pointed to the journalist mayor in the front who was waving her hoof, in apparent frustration. Your question. Finally. She coughed and levitated her pencil to her notepad. Mr. Ellis, now that you are here in Ponyville, what is it that you will be doing here? Doing here? Well, I don't know. He rested his elbow on a pedestal. There ain't no way I know that can get me back to where I was. Not that I want to go back to that hole. So you'll be staying here? Ellis nodded. Yeah, I guess. Another reporter, this one quite cynical by nature, took the opening. So what next? Are you just going to stay here and do nothing? Some other ponies agreed and began to jeer. No, man. I just haven't thought through yet. I could do plenty of stuff. He turned back to Applejack, who could see desperation in his face clear as day. Can you help me out here? Quickly, the firing pony stood by his side, ready to defend her new friend. Ellis here is perfectly capable of pulling his own weight. He's welcome to work with me and my family at the Sweet Apple Acres during this apple bucket season. The human smiled relieved. See, I'm pretty darn good with farm work. Thank you for being so kind, AJ. Applejack tipped her hat. Sure thing, mister. Plus, yeah, I get to spend more time with you while we work, and still have a ton of cool stories to tell you. Applejack's eyes contracted. Her stomach dropped. Her heart went cold as she visualized the result of what she had offered. She would be bucking tree trunks, knocking the prime fruit off of their life-giving branches, letting them fall into buckets and pile onto each other. And Ellis would be there, telling her stories while she bucked, rambling on and on about Keith and cars and Jimmy Gibbs Jr. She wouldn't wish it on Big Mac nor Granny Smith. She would have to listen to him every minute of every hour, all day long. Hold up! She screamed. The ponies gave her questioning looks. We haven't explored all the options for Ellis yet. Here, working on a farm is one thing, but he could be more use here in Motorville. He could help fix the town. The crowd muttered to each other disgustedly. Skeptical tones overshadowed their reasonable ones. Mary tried to whisper in the distance of Applejack. What are you doing? Please, Miss Mary, she implored. You gotta do it for me. You're pushing Applejack. Ellis shrugged, paying no mind to their conversation and addressed the town. Honestly, I'd hate to say that I'd probably be better at woodworking and shit. I think it's a better idea. The mayor sighed in defeat. All right. Place yourself back at the podium. It has been decided. He will assist in the reconstruction of our town, starting tomorrow. I want each and every one of you to treat him as if you would treat any other pony. If he wishes to take part in our community, then he has the right to earn his place. She paused, processing for a moment. No further questions for today. I'm sure you all have things to do. With that, I bring this town meeting to a close. Thank you all for your time. Mary turned the microphone off and dismounted from the podium. Her, Ellis, and the four others re-entered the town hall to discuss the logistics of the human's job placement. Lyra bounced up and down, trying to see past the sea of equines to catch a glimpse of the speaker. Her close friend Bon Bon was not amused. Lyra, cut that out! She kept hopping heedlessly of her word. But I can't see him! I want to see him! Bon Bon had never seen her so worked up in all her life. She was very near resorting to plowing through the crowd to see this Ellis guy they were talking about. If only she had been outside earlier. She heard from a couple other ponies who decided to come out at the time that a tall thing that ran on two legs had been chased by Rarity. While she was chasing him, Lyra didn't care. What she did take interest in is Ellis' two legs. They mentioned that he was at least twice as tall as any pony in Ponyville. Such a thing was what Lyra had been searching for since. Lyra! Bon Bon abruptly silenced her thoughts. They ended the meeting. It's over. What? She sank to the ground in disappointment as the crowd returned to their idle conversation and began to disperse. But I didn't get to see him. You'll probably get to see him tomorrow. But she was cut off by the wild-eyed green unicorn suddenly invading her personal space. You don't understand! This is really important! Up close, she could see the beads of sweat clumping in her coat together and red veins snaking through her irises. Bonbon assertively pushed her away. "What's gotten into you?" She only returned a blank stare as her mind caught up the rest of her. I just... She didn't have any time to wait for her answer. "Never mind." She clopped off towards the market. "Come on, we still have some shopping to do." Lara took one last glance at the town hall door, trying to imagine the shape of the human behind it before tagging behind her friend with silent determination. This isn't over. Celestia's orange suns hung just above the mountains behind them, casting long shadows of Ellis and Applejack in front of them as they walked along the trail they took early in the afternoon. This time, Applejack had strongly insisted that she told the stories this time. Ellis didn't object. He loved to hear stories as much as he loved to tell them. And her stories were pretty exciting. They didn't involve a choice person being maimed and somehow living, but intriguing nonetheless. It passed the time for both of them as they strolled back to the farm. And then Gil the screeched and took off just like that. Ellis shook his head. "I tell you, she ain't no good to nobody. I used to know a guy like that once." He trailed off. "Hey, what's she doing now these days?" "We haven't seen her since that day." She brought up a memory of dread. In fact, the last pony who saw her was Dominic. Dominic. That was a few weeks ago. No pony nor Griffin had seen her since. She just... Applejack hesitated. "Went missing." You think she died somehow?" She didn't like Gilda, but she hated the thought of death even more. I don't want to think about that too much." "Well then," he decided it was a good time ever to change the subject. "What about this Dominic guy you talked about?" "He's a pony who lives mostly on his own, working on making potions and stuff. He's kind of old and not very easygoing, but deep down he's a kind soul. But he needs some good company every while. And a bath," she silently added. "He makes potions. What kind of potions?" "Weird ones." She cringed at that. Remember those embarrassing episodes not too long ago. A tall red barn of soil acres came into view, with the apple homestead right near it. The pair continued to talk as their converged upon the front door of the house, where Big Macintosh and Apple Bloom were waiting on the front porch. Philly galloped to meet them both halfway. "Oh my gosh, Applejack, what happened in Ponyville? You look terrible." The elder sister realized that she did, in fact, feel terrible as well. Bags hung under her slightly pinkish eyes. Her hair was ruffled and messy from chasing Rarity and Ellis for a good quarter hour, combined with all the stress of the day. Applejack felt like she could sleep like a rock for a day straight. "Nothing too bad, sis. It's just being hectic, all." Her brother came trotting up. "I hope you all got that sorted out. I miss you here at the farm." "Sorry about that, Big Mac. And yes, we got sorted out fine. Ellis here is going to work with construction in Ponyville." "May as well do my part since I'm here," Ellis added. "He's working in the town?" Mac is his man. "I thought for sure he'd be helping us on the farm." "No!" Applejack shouted without thinking. I mean, no. He decided that he'd be better use over there. No offense, Sugar Cube, but you ain't made for apple bucking." "None taken. I couldn't possibly buck apples half as good as you," he snorted. "Don't start that again." Granny Smith took Alice's appearance well, considering she didn't have a heart attack. The ancient matriarch merely rocked back in her chair and took it like meeting any other pony. "My, you're a tall one. Who's this you brought here, darling?" His name is Ellis." The next thing any pony knew, Granny was snoring loudly in her rocking chair, indisposed for the next few hours or so. "I guess I'll make a supper tonight." Alice sat Bloom and Big Mac all sat at the table, waiting patiently for Applejack to serve the food. Round white plates were with apple pattern trim set in front of them as on a clean tablecloth. After a few minutes of Apple Bloom questioning Alice on everything from here to there, her older sister entered the room, balancing a large steam bowl on her back. "Food's on, everybody," she set it on the table and used a wooden spoon to dish out the hearty smelling substance into their dishes. Apple Bloom bounced excitedly in her seat, while Big Mac and Tosh remained stoically as ever. Ellis had been both elbows resting on the table, his hands clenched together, his forehead resting on his knuckles as he appeared to be muttering something under his breath. Eyes closed. Abject could have asked him what he was doing, but instead she passed it off as one of his weird quirks, like the strange words he'd sometimes say with a little extra emphasis. She shoveled the spoon into the bowl and brought it to him, human's plate. Ellis wrinkled his nostrils. What's this? To Ellis, it looked like a crud he used to get in his elementary school. Gray, pasty, mixed with lumps of what looked to be raw oats and grass. It emitted a strange earthy stench. After a day of eating nothing but fruits and cupcakes, he was really hoping for some meat. That there's my own hay casserole, she responded with pride. Yeah! Now Bloom nodded as she bit into the top of her pile. It's my favorite. No talking with your mouth full, Bloom. Ellis couldn't believe what he was hearing. Hay casserole. That sounds like some kind of horse feed. Abject gave him quizzical looks as he slapped a palm on his head. The stupidly obvious truth finally dawned on him. These are horses. They don't eat meat. We might have a slight problem here.